Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anitawati Muhammad Lukman from UiTM Malaysia, and today I'm going to present a paper titled KANSEI Engineering in Malaysia and Indonesia, a systematic literature review. The paper was co-authored by 3 members, myself from UiTM Malaysia, Professor Ana Hadiana from Indonesian Institute of Science, Indonesia, and Ms. Nik Nur Nabila Nik Ismail, a PhD candidate from Malaysia. As evident in scholarly discussions and past literature, KE has gained growing interest by researchers in Malaysia and Indonesia. Nevertheless, there was no literary studies focusing on the extent and pattern of its adoption in both countries. Hence, in the attempt to provide such knowledge, the study aims to present the current evidence of the adoption of KE in Malaysia and Indonesia. A systematic literature review, or SLR, was performed to investigate the diverse range of designs and services that measured, assessed, and concluded via the implementation of KE. The primary focus of the SLR was to understand the pattern of KE adoption or implementation in Malaysia and Indonesia in terms of the domain interest, the research approach, the analysis, the timeline, and the publication source. While the primary reason for the implementation of KE is to gain knowledge on KE responses and the indicators affecting the responses, and embed the knowledge into new innovative product or service design, the diverse pattern of KE implementation of the studies are of the SLR's interest to outline. The study has focused on investigating past scholarly literature in the span of 20 years, from the year 2000 until 2019, from Malaysia and Indonesia. The primary research involved 11 online databases and resulting 152 relevant literature for the SLR. The SLR, as reported in this paper, was performed according to the method shown on the screen. The study set its review questions, performed activity to identify relevant literature, and then filtered the literature according to sets of selection criteria, performed data abstraction, analysis, and draw interpretation to conclude. Malaysia and Indonesia have similar historical and cultural background, and KE has been gradually gaining scholars' interests in both countries. It would be of interest to outline the atmosphere of the scholarly investigations, thus providing a sound reference for stakeholders, including R&D advocates, to the future potential of the methodology in theory and practice. Hence, it is important to formulate questions in the beginning of an SLR with regards to the topic addressed. Therefore, the SLR, as reported in this paper, aims to answer these review questions. First, what evidence are there regarding the adoption of KE in both countries? Second, what domain has been addressed in past literature on KE in both countries? Third, what research approach was used in past literature in KE in both countries? And fourth, what analysis method was used in past literature on KE in both countries? In the process of identifying relevant literature, the study developed keywords to construct search strings. The study first lists the keywords mentioned in the articles found in preliminary searches, and then derive major terms used in the research questions such as KE in Malaysia and KE in Indonesia. And then the study lists the keywords related to the major terms such as KANSEI, design, and UX, and then search for synonyms and alternative words such as emotion, affective, and emotive. The study used the Boolean OR to incorporate preliminary searches, alternative spellings, and synonyms. And the study used the Boolean AND to link the major terms, keywords, and alternative keywords. As I mentioned early on, the primary research has involved the use of 11 online databases. The databases are ACM Digital Library, EBSCO Host, IEEE Explore, ISI Web of Science, Inspect, ISI Proceedings, ProQuest, Sage, Science Direct, Springer Link, and Scopus. The selection of these online databases was based on the author's knowledge of databases that index KE-related studies and the list of available online databases subscribed by the university library. To avoid biases, the study also has extended the search by searching Google Scholar database, reviewing reference lists of retrieved articles, reviewing publication of corresponding authors, manual search to related journals, proceedings, and books related to KE adoptions, using personal references and emails, and referring to experts in the field. SLR cannot include all literature found in its preliminary research, and thus the study needs to set the criteria for including or excluding studies. The inclusion and exclusion criteria were set based on the review questions. The ones with high levels of evidence, good quality, and studies with major problems are kept. Others like case series or case reports are left, as they do not report a complete study. And then the study performed data abstraction to allow analysis of the eligible literature for the SLR. It is a process to extract the information from the eligible literature into a table of data. The study used an Excel spreadsheet to categorize evidence relating to the review questions. As a result from the investigation, the evidence showed distribution of articles obtained from Scopus, IEEE Explore, ISI Web of Science, and other online databases such as Semantic Scholar, American Scientific Publishers, and Google Scholar. Most articles, which contributes 37% of the total, was found from Scopus database, followed by IEEE Explore 26% and Web of Science 19%. They compose more than 70% of the total articles, which the rest are from the sources as mentioned earlier. The initial phase of the search process identified 165 studies involving KE in both countries. Each of these studies was filtered according to the set of inclusion and exclusion criteria before being accepted for the synthesis of evidence. If titles and abstracts were not sufficient to identify the relevance of a paper, full articles were reviewed. Duplication or similarity of studies were also observed to eliminate biases of the SLR result. Based on the filtering process, 152 studies, which is 92% of the total papers, were accepted for the synthesis of evidence. Evident from the trend of adoption on the chart shown on the screen, from the eligible dataset for the SLR, Malaysia showed emergence of its first publication some 6 years earlier in 2006 than its neighboring country Indonesia, which first publication appears recorded in 2012. Both countries showed reasonably steady increase throughout the years. The spike shown in the year 2018 in Malaysia's case is believed to be boosted by the International Conference on KANSEI Engineering and Emotion Research, KEER, held in the country in the year. In terms of domain, it can be observed from the chart that Malaysia showed the most interest in KE implementation in computing domain, followed closely by product design. Computing domain includes web user interface design, multimedia, interface design, animation, online learning, games, and others. In product design, there were studies on robotics, film and video, car interior design, assistive and therapeutic device, textile, and others. In services, there were the Happiness Index and LEIQTM for classification of positive emotion and importance. On the other hand, Indonesia showed interest mostly in product design, while observable attention appears to come from computing and service design. The interest includes packaging design, seat design, batik, household, therapeutic and rehabilitation, and others. In the computing domain, there were e-learning, web user interface design, e-commerce, and others. In services, observable attention can be seen from logistics. Both countries did not delve much into methodologies, perhaps due to its relatively newness of the discipline in the region, and most scholars are inclined more to the exploratory implementation. Observation done to research approach shows that out of 152 eligible literature, 47 literature were from Indonesia as compared to 105 from Malaysia. The quantitative approach involves methods such as survey questionnaire, KANSEI checklist, and other quantitative methods. Qualitative approach includes implementation of KJ method, laddering, interview, and other qualitative methods. Mixed method approach showed mostly implementation of quantitative survey and interview and other mixed methods. In the computing domain, studies have been focused on finding relationships between users' emotional response and the design elements in the effort to design more appealing user interface, establishing personalization, and content design. The result of observation to analysis methods shows that the most popular analysis method or approach by authors in both countries is factor analysis, followed by partially square analysis and principal component analysis. There is also implementation of Kana model, KJ method, quality function deployment, Rosette model, quantification theory type 1, laddering, and theory of inventive problem solving, THEORIES. The study's ultimate goal was to understand the pattern of KEER adoption and implementation, which has been gradually gaining scholars' interests in Malaysia and Indonesia. The SLR shows interesting results while answering the review questions. The evidence shows the emergence of KE in Malaysia began in 2006 and Indonesia in 2012. The computing domain is mostly focused by both countries' scholars, followed closely by product design and service design. In terms of research approach, quantitative approach was found to be the most popular both in Malaysia and Indonesia. Additionally, multivariate analysis and regression analysis seems to be the most popular analysis method. The SLR includes exhaustive scientific papers adopting or implementing KE in Malaysia and Indonesia. The study has summarized the pattern of interest and influence of KE methodology or KANSEI approach in both countries, the types of domain, and the kind of knowledge that the scholars from both countries are focusing on, and the analysis approach. The results provide sound reference for scholars, including R&D advocates, to the future adoption of KE in theory and practice. Several future works can be suggested to advance the research. Among those that can be suggested are to conduct a comparative study with the case of Japan and other parts of the world, to investigate the stage of development in KE adoption in Malaysia, investigate how the adoption of KE has changed the people, or the society, or the industry, or the academia in Malaysia, and to investigate how the cultural background affects the outcome of the adoption of KE outside Japan. We've come to the end of my presentation. If you would like to know more about the research, you can contact me via email to the address as shown on the screen, or you can get connected to me via LinkedIn. If you want to know more about me, you can visit my website. And with that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you for your patience and interest listening to my presentation. Bye-bye.